Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast. Thanks to all of you that join us, whether it's morning, noon, or night, whether it's at home, whether it's jogging, if any of you exercise, whether it's at the office when you should be working. At least you're working on your soccer knowledge, maybe. We have to work on our soccer knowledge. I'm Alex Parra. It's always an honor and a pleasure. We appreciate every single one of you that takes the time to join us, to listen to us, to see us, to tolerate us. Beside me, the one and only, the other way, Mr. Victor Araiza. Victor, good morning, good evening, good day. How are you, Victor?
Doing well. I don't know if I'm the only one because there's a bunch of all these Araizas that have, popped up in the world. And
is there a
every
long
time
line of Araizas?
I didn't think it was that long, but I didn't used to struggle. Like when you go to social media, when you register, and then it's pretty easy to get, my own handle or something.
Sure.
I like my own username, and I didn't have to come up with anything creative. I think nowadays it's a little harder. So it's been harder since like Instagram came along. So that's when I found out, I'm not the only one. So I'm the only one that covers soccer.
Right. Not very well, but you do cover it, I might add.
Nonetheless.
I'm just reading the viewer comments, by the way. Neither Alex nor Victor cover it very well. Maybe you shouldn't be paying attention to social media, Victor. It's great to be with you, Victor.
There you go.
Always an honor. I appreciate. By the way, we don't intentionally, by the way, when we prepare for this, quote unquote, talk to each other about, hey, you be good guy, you be bad guy, you be this and that. It flows, friends, whether we agree or disagree. But different perspectives are important, including your take, friends, on a lot of these topics. And Victor, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about youth soccer today. We're going to talk about the Houston Dynamo, the Houston Dash. We're going to talk a little bit about some initiatives that I think are very important to our community. We'll talk about a departed friend of ours, Victor, and her memory and how we can continue to honor her and her career and her profession and her passion. So we're talking about Maggie a little bit later on in the show. But why don't we get started, Victor, with, I guess, for Houston soccer fans and seasons that have already started, the MLS, this past Saturday night at Shell Energy Stadium, El Plato Fuerte, as they say, the LAFC coming into town. And we saw Houston with an opportunity. As we mentioned in our wrap, the color red changed everything, Victor. But what a night at Shell Energy. The potential was there for something really special early on in the season for Ben Olsen's team.
Yeah, look, this is kind of the moments the matches you want as well. Last year we had one of them when Miami came to town. Obviously, that match didn't turn out to be, we'll say, as competitive because it was a bigger margin of defeat. But I think just the moment, right? The fact that there was some excitement around the game, potential sellout we were talking about then, putting the prices aside. I mean, just the fact that kind of in an MLS match, because we've seen it when, it's a Liga MX team that comes to show or when it's Gold Cup and we've seen those sellouts. But I think these Dynamo sellouts have been much more scarce for that reason. And again, kind of putting that with the result from the previous week where they started with a win. There was some excitement into this. I think there were certainly plenty of fans that were hoping for a victory, that were thinking that could be a possibility. I think it was a possibility. And, ultimately, much more talented team won, which I think many of us would have predicted. But I think, the Dynamo got a little bit of an out here where they got to, maybe blame it on, at least the fans are blaming it on the red cards, which one of them we see here. And listen, this is always going to get the attention. This is always going to kind of be the controversy around these games. We can talk about that if it's right or wrong, but certainly that became one of the stories of the game.
Well, I think without a doubt here, 0-0 at this point in time, Victor, almost to halftime. And in my opinion, Victor, officially in the 47th minute is when that red card comes out. And
that was right before halftime.
Yeah,
right?
Right before halftime. But a couple of points, Victor. Antonio Carlos, to me, had been playing really well, and not only him individually, but leading his back line. Disciplined, not risking too much, great timing on several tackles. The goalkeeper, of course, Bond, also playing very well in the first half, meaning the strategy was, let's hang in there. Let's not do anything spectacular, but not necessarily let's do anything that's going to lose us this game. And that's sometimes the way you have to play it. Ben Olsen was clear that he felt he was facing a superior team. Maybe you don't say that to everyone and you still believe and you you come in as the underdog. He clearly said they were. I do not believe, and I've watched the replay often or many times, that was a straight red. Was there contact? Absolutely. Was it from behind? Absolutely. But I think the center, Mr. Freeman, jumped too quickly, Victor. As Ben Olsen explained it, he initially reached for the yellow, then he changed his mind straight to the red. Now, he was right there. He was within 5 yards of the play.
Right in front of it.
Right in front of it. So there's no excuse of I didn't see it, I wasn't sure. I think he had a little doubt. He processed, and look, at the level I was refereeing, which wasn't at the MLS level, you've got milliseconds to make decisions. I think maybe he went too far, though, and you can lament it, but it's part of the game. You have to accept it. That changed everything, Victor. And after that, your game plan goes out the window. You have to now adjust to the reality of the game, for better or worse. And the result then is the result. Things change. You have to adjust. You have to adapt. Then you get a second red. And of course, at that point, it's, hey, let's bring in some younger players.
Be game over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Game was over. But if, and there's a lot of ifs in life, Victor, I would have loved to seen this match go the entire 90 minutes, 11 v 11. It might have been different. Now, do I still think LAFC is the better team? Yes. The power they have, the moments they have. At times they were literally toying with the Dynamo as far as possession and movement and finding the spaces and the discipline that Marc Dos Santos' team brought to Shell Energy Stadium. But yes, it changed it, and you have to live with some of these games. Later in the season, Victor, you might use this as an opportunity to learn and grow. I'll be quiet.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's different ways to dissect this game. You know, going back to what you just said, the defense was kind of trying to not make mistakes. And, you know, unfortunately, these kinds of calls, I don't agree with, you know, that it was a red. I don't think it was. I think because I didn't see the intent.
We agree that it shouldn't have been a straight red.
We agree on that.
Okay.
But I also think, and I mean, we also agree that it's the referee's decision. And whether you like it or not, you have to respect it. That's his call. That's the way he saw it. And, you know, and then it's also how do you adjust after that, which, you know, again, but just first of all, I think that's why, to me, you know, that play, and this will be a lesson, you know, going forward. But that's why, to me, when you just talked about the defense was doing well not to kind of risk too much, that's one where that's, to me, maybe a stupid risk, because again, whether you like it or not, you know, he got the studs up. Yes, Son, you know, milked it. I think he overacted it a little bit. But you got to know that's potentially what could happen, and especially when, you know, star players are going to get the benefit of the doubt. Listen, we saw a lot of Koreans in that building that night.
We did.
And I think, and that's just this stadium. And again, a stadium that has been struggling to get fans to get to these games. We've seen these in all the sellouts that LAFC has had around the league. Mm-hmm. Of course, if I was in MLS's shoes, yeah, you're going to protect Son. This is your golden goose in a way. Besides Messi, now you got.
So let me be devil's advocate. I don't believe, Victor, there's a memo that's going out to referees and to opponents to say, let's protect the golden goose. Meaning, I get it. And yes, you and I looked at each other in our wrap up and talked about, hey, let's bring in a Son here because we might get and catch some breaks. We see this with Messi a lot, Victor. Messi is protected at a different level. But why is that? It's because it's protecting the industry, which affects all of them. And we're watching the replay right here.
Wait, and it does affect all of them. This affects the Dynamo too. Because, well, I mean, they might say, well, we already have him for this game.
Sure.
But I mean, I think a viewership for the league as a whole, he's an important player. And I said it again in our post-match. If the Dynamo would like some of those calls, hey, they're free to go out and get a big star player that could potentially get the benefit of the doubt of those calls as well. I think you'll see, the Tomas Mullers, the Timo Werners.
Yeah.
I think you'll see those type of players get those type of calls. Again, that's not to say whether it's right or wrong. I just think it's reality. And I think when you don't approach a game knowing that, you're being a little bit naive. I was also a little bit disappointed just because when we hadn't talked about this, Antonio Carlos got the captain's armband.
He did.
That's not, again, a big discussion that we had. But when you pick a captain, you got to pick somebody that I think, just my opinion on this, is kind of the guy that goes to bat for your team with the referee, the guy that's the leader, the guy that, hopefully doesn't make these kinds of decisions. And so I was wondering if, I understood why Olsen made him his captain. I don't know if I agreed because, again, I think, forgive me with all this. We have all these captains on the team. These other guys don't have MLS experience. That's a big reason why I think Carlos also got it. And listen, maybe that will segue me into the other conversation that I think, I think this was a game for Ache to start. He didn't play the previous week. I think Holmes didn't really have a complete game in the first week to where you couldn't say, hey, should I bench him this game? I would have liked to seen them go, and especially with Ponce out. And if this is the way that we're going to play and having a guy like Ache there to help you control the game a little bit more, I would have liked to have seen Ache in the middle with Buzat, throw McGlynn out wide, because I think, I don't know if McGlynn's, if you're getting the best of him. I know he got the assist against Chicago, but in this game, we didn't really see him be that impactful. So I would have liked to have seen maybe McGlynn in that position out wide and see you try to go at LAFC in the first couple minutes. And then have HH be a guy that's your captain on the field.
So you're changing up your success with Chicago in less than a week, Victor, to do what? To basically
try to make a statement against LAFC.
I think. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
I think on paper, if we say it's a fair game, we're saying LAFC's got most of the possibilities to win. Right?
Agreed. And Ben Olsen would admit to that.
Even at home.
Yes.
So that's why I would say, well, then what do I have to do to win this game, right? What do I have to do to beat this LAFC team? Because I do think, look, and I know the Miami and LAFC, these are the great teams and they got great players. But I don't think these teams are unbeatable. I think there's things you can do. And
here's your lineup, Victor. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but dissected looking at what was available going into that match. I interrupted you, sir. Continue.
Yeah. Well, first of all, MLS could do a little better in getting this thing right. But look, like I said, I think for me, the weak link there is Holmes because of what we saw the previous week. Here's another one, and this kind of spurs the conversation again. Do you risk, I don't know what they get, like $1 million or something for Griffin Dorsey? Is that worth it to lose your player for the beginning stretch of the season? Dorsey had a great play there in the second Orlando goal against Miami, albeit they lost this weekend. But we know what he can do. We didn't get to see him here. Obviously, they were already practicing with him in preseason. Had he stayed, that would have been a different conversation. But this is where I go back to that and say, are we really trying to win an MLS Cup here, right? Or are we just happy with making the playoffs? And I think... Granted, it's in the past. So now to me, Holmes did okay against Chicago. You got away with it because you won. You took the 3 points.
Sure.
But I think you could have foreseen that against an LAFC, that's a different test. That's not going to be the same. And they're not going to maybe let you get away with it as much. That's why I would have tinkered the lineup a bit. Again, against the players of that magnitude, HH still has the mind. I would have liked to see him on the field. He doesn't have to go the full 90 minutes. And even if he does, guess what? You already knew you don't have a game next week because the one against New England got moved. So that would have been an extra week of recovery.
So let me address a couple of things. First, we have yet to see Hector Herrera play this season. Making him a starter now, maybe he wasn't ready. So we don't know that, right? He was a year away. He's a different player than almost a year and a half.
Not a rookie, Alex. Come on.
No. I get it. But I tend to be more of a defensively minded coach. Certainly not at this level. I'm not saying that. But I don't disagree with Ben Olsen's approach to the game. You're talking about the second match of the season, Victor. You're talking about a marathon. You're talking about, hey, we know this team is coming in hot. They just defeated Miami. Whether that plays psychologically or not, I don't disagree. I think you and I may disagree today on whether you are saying, hey, let's go all in and if we pick up, let's go at them, and that could quickly turn into we're down 3-0 at halftime. Versus what about hanging in there, surviving some of the waves that will come from LAFC, and you catch a lucky break here and there, and you get a win, you get a point, you get a tie at home. That's what this season's about. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, Victor. I'm saying that's the way you have to look at it. You can't risk every time just because. You've got to think about, yes, calculating your points, building this so that you do have a shot at the end of the season, making the playoffs, and going beyond. So I don't know if we're disagreeing with each other.
Well, I think we are.
I think we are.
Look, I think this was a game where you take that risk because, again, you got to do.
Because why not?
No, because you're at home, and in theory, these should be 3 points at home. Every game you have at home, you're trying to win it, right?
Sure.
And if LAFC is better than you talent-wise, what can you do to even the odds here, right? And kind of even this game in your favor. That's why I would have tried. I know Ponce is not available. Linger's not supposed to be a bad drop-off, by the way. I mean, it's not like they're putting the other kid here, Marcanic, or somebody else who hasn't played with this team or with some of these players. I know that it is a different lineup. Again, I would have liked to have seen the experience of Hector Herrera. Earlier, or from the beginning. Earlier, yeah, certainly earlier in this game. Which that's another conversation. But I would have liked to have seen it here just because I think I would have liked to seen him, and especially with this crowd, the fact that it's not as risky because it is early in the season, and maybe you're expecting to lose this one anyways. I would have tried to make a statement against an LAFC. I think things would have lined up the way Bond was having a good night there.
He was
against the like of Son and Buanga.
Buanga, yeah.
Martinez didn't look like he was necessarily having a great night either. So this wasn't the big, scary LAFC. By the way, they're playing their fourth game in 2 weeks. So if it was the other way around, the Dynamo would certainly be talking about that and saying how, exhaustion and everything else. So I think they had a good thing if they aligned everything together. This is the approach they took. It's fine. I still would have liked to have seen a little bit more urgency then. In the first half, and granted, you couldn't foresee the red card, but I do think you had to go out and you had to get the first goal. And I don't know if they had as many clear chances, but they had some chances. And I mean, ultimately, that's kind of what also didn't help them when the rest came. They got the red card. You might have said you at least got it right before halftime, and you have time to adjust as opposed to having to kind of, figure things out on the fly there. There's a lot of ways I think we can look at this, but certainly I think I would have liked to have seen him go a little bit more for the win, and certainly not lose another player. Which now you lose Buzat for the next game. Which,
you do,
yeah.
Well, look. The other positive from your comments, Victor, is that you're actually saying, look, we can play him straight up.
You can, yeah.
Which means you have the talent, and which means Victor Araiza believes in the team, and that's a good thing. Because literally, Victor, I think early on you can say this is currently the best team in MLS. So,
well, and here's the other one. Like I said, I think this was going to be a good litmus test. If you give it your best shot and you still, didn't get it done, I mean, you can still address a little bit further where you need help.
Yeah.
See the best of some of these guys against an LAFC. I thought we saw a good enough game, but I would have liked to have seen him pull off the surprise, go for the 3 wins, win some of the fans, some of the new fans that came in just to see Son. In the end, it didn't work out, and now we see, at least they got an extra week of rest.
Of rest, and we'll talk about that. Victor, let's talk about what did happen. And we had 2 young players come in to the match. One of them, Matthew Arana, coming in, making his debut, 15 years of age. He was one of the players that came in. Before him, we also have Agustin Resch, who came in. And these circumstances, I think, facilitated that. I don't know if that was the game plan to begin with, Resch actually came in first as a defender.
Yeah, he was moved up before the game because he's, I think,
Correct.
registered with Dynamo too. And again, we hear everything about depth, and it didn't seem like they have a deep bench. They had two goalkeepers on the bench, but and then two rookies here that came into the game. But look, I had seen, I believe, a graphic before the game also about the Dynamo not necessarily having a college player. So to see a guy like Resch, I mean, this is where I think they don't have to be a big spending club if they get it right in some fronts. They need more of the college player, and Resch certainly. Well, I think he handled himself all right. We'll have to see more of him, but that's a good. At least you got something out of it in experience with him, and obviously the 15-year-old Arana.
We will look back on this match and lament certain things. One way, cynically, and I'm not saying your comments were cynic, but the red card kind of. You're right.
Well, I just hate this victim mentality that we always have with the refs, right? Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, the fact that every fan in Houston always goes to, MLS doesn't like us, and it doesn't help that the coach and the general manager and the whole organization feels the same way.
Sure.
I wish that would change. I wish we would stop lamenting ourselves when it comes to refs. I think we've talked about it. It's out of your control. They're humans too. They're not always going to get it right. I don't like this constant yelling or berating with the refs during the games.
I agree with that.
I would like to just see them try to, it's not our night. It's not our night, and it's out of our control. But, I don't know. We'll get them something more uplifting, more positive than just this acceptance that, we lost because of the refs.
You sound like Alex Parra. That's so weird how we changed that, Victor.
Yeah, we've been dressing the same now.
Exactly. Something's wrong with that. Yeah, we got to call the stylist to help us out with that. Victor, that is a mature approach to all of this, accepting the referees are going to make mistake. I call it the soccer gods. Sometimes they'll smile upon you. Sometimes they just won't. Sometimes it just will not be your day. No matter how you prepped, no matter how you scouted, no matter how you may know the minutia of every player that's on the opposing team, it just isn't going to happen. In this case, though, we analyze it. I think we both agree, and most people would say that Freeman was wrong in the initial red card, and that started the domino effect of many things that happened after that. Does it justify it? Not necessarily.
Well, I actually liked some of the reaction. I think one of the highlights was that Buzat chance from deep in midfield.
Beautiful.
I would like to see more of those kind of opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
More chaos, right? To try to disrupt the other team and just, again, more offensive plays.
Well, again, it also has to do with the opponent. Yes, fourth game in 12 days. Yes, it's a team that now is taking a little bit of a break, but it's still the standard, currently the standard in the league, and we see the result. Victor, anything else positive you saw from the match? I did like the 20,853. I was looking at the number, not full. I'm told it was a sellout, but there was a buzz there in the first half about this, and the energy, and even some post-game shenanigans with journalists trying to see the big players, guys that we know trying to take a picture with Son.
That always happens, even if it's not Son.
Exactly. So at least they didn't ask for a jersey to be signed.
I'll focus on this. We saw Koreans come out in big numbers for this game. I think I'm pretty sure it's the most Koreans I've seen at a Dynamo match in a long time.
Or ever.
I would say that a big part of that was the local population, right? Which again kind of reminds you how Houston's a big soccer market with different ethnicities, and that's again another sector of the market that the team has yet to conquer, right? That's still a possibility. I know that's only one son out there. I'm not saying they necessarily go out and start getting Korean players now, but I'm just saying that there are fans, I believe, from different backgrounds that love the game of soccer. We got a star player here for this game, and it shows you that people will show out for star players, and certainly there's a lot of terrain there to conquer for the Houston Dynamo and Houston Dash if they choose to go out there and till the soil.
Victor Martinez to me also is a young player, Venezuela community coming out as well. I think that's one of the other shining players on this team. Of course, Bouanga and Son, we talk about them a lot, but to me, Martinez, maybe he didn't have his best game ever, but you could see a difference, Victor, when he had the ball. And his
Well,
the
LAFC
movement
was a little banged up too.
They were.
They had some players out. Hollings had probably one of the most important ones there in the back line. So I mean, it wasn't like they were complete. Again, I think things had lined up here, pretty much the perfect game you needed, or the circumstances as good as they were going to get for the Dynamo to maybe get 3 points. At the very least, try to take a point. I know it's coulda, shoulda, woulda. I just would have liked to have seen him go for a little bit more than just kind of, we saw in the first half where they just kind of try to wait and pick their spot.
And I think that was conscious decision by Ben Olsen. I feel a little incomplete, Victor, after that match. I really wish it would have gone 11v11 the entire 90, and we'll really test out the strategy. Maybe there were those moments. Maybe you catch some luck. So I feel incomplete about it, but also realistically, I think even Ben Olsen would say, you know what, this was a good team, and the red card doesn't help my strategy, my approach to the match. So 3 points after 2 matches. Let's quickly talk before we talk about the Houston Dash. Why are there 2 stories, Victor, that I'm hearing about the postponed match that's supposed to be played, third match for for Houston Dynamo at Foxborough against the Revolution? The Revolution, if I'm not mistaken, came out and said, as you and I presented in our wrap-up, that there was an issue with the weather, the grass was not delivered, and that it wouldn't be ready. The Dynamo official communique.
Yeah, I think said inclement weather, but I'm sure it probably plays into the same thing.
And forgive me, maybe I'm not too well versed on predicting the weather ahead of time. And is it just something that people don't want to talk about? It's postponed.
Yeah, well, I think that's the
would
most
there be a
important
consistent story about it, or am I making too much out of this, Victor?
Well, I mean, I think it's canceled already. The first version was that the grass wasn't going to get there, and if there's no field, I mean, you're not going to play on concrete. So
of course, but that's not inclement weather predicted for that day, correct? And maybe I misread.
Yeah. So maybe it's but I mean, I think at the end that's another. I don't know if they'll see it as a lucky break. I think they'll probably say, "Oh, we want to get back on the field because after defeat." But I think you get to reassess. You get another home game.
Right.
For your next match, and so I think and certainly with 2 weeks preparation, you should get, I believe, 3 points in that one, and you can kind of reset a little bit. Although you're still down now 3 points at home from this LAFC game, which I think if there's probably one game to excuse off the table, that's probably it.
There you go. So Victor says we're good. We'll see where the team goes. So that was week number 2 in Houston relative to the Houston Dynamo. Let's talk about the Dash, Victor. The Dash going up to the Cotton Bowl in a friendly, if you will, against Dallas Trinity. The final score 1-0, really secondary. I like this matchup in a cavernous stadium. Of course, I don't know the actual number, but I'm sure it wasn't close to a sellout. And then the Dash really missing 7 players on international duty. The Dash are still in preseason, so this for them is just another tune-up. There'll be another tune-up this coming weekend when they take on the University of Texas. I believe it's closed door at this point at Houston Sports Park, but the team...
What are they hiding?
This is one of those things where this wasn't closed door, right? So
it's, I believe, to the prerogative of the team, right? So that's why, applause to Dallas Trinity, because the Dash hosted this game or this matchup last year and chose to keep it.
Right.
I think they let season ticket holders in, so we'll, I suppose, give them that. But again, I'm still going to gripe about they should have held it at show. And look, more importantly, I hope this becomes an annual thing.
Agreed.
Maybe that's in the plans. And because, again, it's the only time we can see these 2 leagues cross over. Certainly this Dallas-Houston rivalry, which is always going to be there across every sport. And who knows if we'll ever have like a women's Open Cup or something like that where they can face off officially. But at least for now, I think this is as good as it's going to get.
Victor, you're reading my mind, and I see this only as a positive. I do worry about diluting too much, and maybe in the future podcast, Victor, and it won't be tonight because we're packed with information we got to get out. There's talk that in the USL, and by the way, the Trinity play in the USL Women's Premier League, equal first division to the NWSL, but the USL is talking at certain divisions now about a strike, about players not getting good compensation, and we'll bring more facts and details. But this is what happens in a World Cup year, Victor, when everybody wants a piece of the pie. Everybody has planned, hey, the World Cup's coming, let's get all our product out there. And I'll give you more details, friends, when we talk about this formally, but I don't want our sport to get so diluted, Victor, that we've got 80 professional teams in Texas and none of them fill one stadium. The quality of players gets diluted, and that's the dark side of this, that everyone wants the piece of the pie, but at what cost, at what risk, that we're now playing semi-professional soccer in front of 300 fans when you're trying to pay players good wages, and it's impossible because the financial model won't sustain it. I don't want to get there yet, Victor, but these are the things that happen, and I've seen this in World Cup cycles. Victor, we lived it here in Houston. I lived it after the 94 World Cup with a team called the Houston Force. I happened to be an assistant coach. We were called the Houston Farce because after X amount of games, and it was maybe a handful, the team folded. The expectation was that post-World Cup, in a World Cup year, people were going to come out of the woodwork and do this. And the league wanted to grow, but there was nothing there to sustain
just by
it.
magic, by the way. There is some marketing there that could, push it a little and help.
We will see. I'm more up. I'm hopeful. What you said is correct. That this becomes a tradition. That this becomes a rivalry, and that we're talking about Dallas and Houston playing each other for the next 3 decades, and that we fill up the Cotton Bowl one day.
All that one thing. I know on technicalities, the USL Super League is first division. Or Gamebridge Super League, whatever it's called now.
Correct. It's Gamebridge, yeah, officially sponsored.
I think until you're getting a spot in the CONCACAF Women's Champions Cup and have a pathway there, a realistic pathway to compete for the FIFA Women's Club World Cup, I don't know if you can call yourself first division. I mean, you could, I guess, by definition, but if you're not getting these spots, if you're not having a pathway to these competitions, I mean, does it really count?
That's a good point. I think that's a valid point, Victor. And when will those opportunities present themselves? So there's growth here, but I still like, Victor, that this match took place and what it means. Let's stick with the dash here for a second, Victor, and let's talk about the launch since our last podcast of the new jersey. I like the look, actually. You and I hadn't discussed it, but the Houston Chronicles kit was released this past late February the 26th. You're looking at some of the images and some of the imagery and some of the thought process that goes into these decisions. Clearly, I'm not a very creative person when it comes to this. The meaning behind it all and the thought process. I'm sure someone spent a lot of time thinking about it. I like the look, Victor, relative to the purple, but I like the dark purple, if that's what we're calling it. What are your thoughts on this jersey? I think it's pretty cool. I like it. I think it's got potential.
Well, obviously the blue, is a good nod to Houston, and that's the color of the dash I've used for a little while now. I believe Brian Salas is the one that is in charge of these designs. I believe he's a Houstonian. And so that's where, they get it right in handing these projects off to somebody who's got that local knowledge. And I know there's a lot of things in the design that kind of have a nod to Houston, and then obviously the name, right? The Houston Chronicle building, and then the Houston Chronicles name. So, these are always, I think, nice designs. I don't think that's something we ever complain about. Again, how do you sell more of these jerseys? I would think the easiest way is to get a star player. I don't know what their actual numbers are, but I would imagine that would boost a lot. And the other one is, as much as it's called the Houston Chronicles kit, is the Houston Chronicle going to cover the dash? I hope, I hope at least as this motivates them, because I know they've been bragging about it. So we'll see. I'll mention that real quick with Dynamo. I was disappointed that they kind of ran a wire report when they had gotten a reporter out to the first game. I thought in a World Cup year we'd get, and we are, at least in the local paper, getting some more coverage. I mean, that goes for the dash as well. I think, they gotta, whoever's job it is, I think that's something that would help the team a lot.
Victor, I want to close our coverage of the Dynamo and Dash with a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, and we're talking about Maggie McKeithen, a friend of ours. You talk about coverage, you talk about the dedication, and this is now the second year that the Dynamo are now again talking about the importance of Maggie's scholarship, and this scholarship in particular is for women that are interested in pursuing this profession. Maggie was a supporter of the Dynamo Dash. As a journalist, she gave her all. Victor, you and I saw her passion, saw her involvement, and I'm very happy that the Dynamo Dash charities are recognizing her again in having women who are interested in this career to have a place. Let's see here. The scholarship amount is $5,000 each. 2 scholarships will be available in 2026. There is a submission window that ends on March 31st. So we encourage any of you that may be interested to please participate. Maggie, to me, was a spectacular, exceptional person. Victor, not only for Fox 26, but she was part of our soccer community. I think this is an amazing initiative. I want to cover it. I want to make sure we talk more about it. So any female journalists, aspiring journalists, sports journalism that are completing their degree in the similar fields can apply. And Victor, I'll let you talk about this. It's something very emotional to many of us, but I think it's an amazing thing that the Dynamo Dash organization and the Dynamo Dash charities are doing once again.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said. I don't know what school tuition is these days. I'm sure, but I'm sure any bit helps, and certainly that sounds like a generous amount, $5,000. I struggle a little bit when it comes to this topic, obviously, because we did get close to her near the end. I welcome any help towards certainly journalism and obviously covering the team. And again, I hope as many people apply to this as they can, and I hope it only continues to grow. These are the kinds of local efforts that the club I think needs to do, and I'm glad for this one here. I have my list of complaints for some of these, but this one I can agree with, and I'm glad they immediately got on top of it as soon as they could, and I hope sooner rather than later we start seeing some of these journalists hopefully cover the Houston Dynamo and Dash if they choose to.
Absolutely. So let me be clear. Last year, by the way, winners were Kayla Hughes of the University of Mississippi and Catarina Santos from Texas Tech. So that was 2025 recipients. This year, again, the process of submitting your applications ends on March 31st. The amounts are $5,000 each. And eligibility, this is important, Victor. I'm glad you got me to clarify. Female high school seniors, college students, or graduate students with at least one semester left in their studies and pursuing sports journalism or related fields. So there you go. I'm very proud of this initiative, Victor. We will miss her dearly. She had an impact on all of us. And it's just amazing how quickly it's been 2 years since her passing. But this is one of the legacies that Maggie leaves behind. And again, it's hard, but at least this is one way to honor Maggie and her contribution, not only to the field of sports journalism, but to the field of soccer.
Absolutely.
Victor, we also had the opportunity in the last couple of days to be at an event, and for full disclosure, I'll talk about my role wearing a couple of hats. This past Friday at Moody Park, we were part of the FIFA World Cup Houston host committee's unveiling of the Free Kicks program and what that means to our community. The Free Kicks program is something part of the World Cup legacy, meaning once that the World Cup is gone, is no longer here, what happens to the community? What is the legacy that will be left behind relative to youth soccer, relative to fields? And we'll talk about some of those details here shortly. Again, I want to be clear from the perspective of my involvement. I did my best, Victor, and do my best to cover it as a soccer journalist, if you will. My hat also was as the founder and director of SG1 Soccer Club, which is one of the clubs that were selected to be part of this program. I'm also very proud of our involvement, what that means for our community, what that means for our club. And Victor, I think in our conversation, anything I can answer relative to the process, I'd be happy to do so. And it's not a perfect process necessarily, but I think it's something that's very good for our community. A lot of dignitaries there, Victor, fanfare, politicians, celebrities, and kids representing each one of the clubs that were selected. I'll name the clubs that were selected here quickly, by the way, Victor. Albion Hurricanes FC, Baytown Saints Youth Soccer Club, GFI Academy, HTX Soccer, and as I mentioned, SG1 Soccer Club. Victor, a big piece of this is that 23 fields will be renovated throughout the city of Houston, throughout the county of Harris, and that'll be one of the pieces along with scholarships for players in underserved communities. So that's a bit of an overview, Victor. Your opinion, your thoughts on this initiative?
Yeah, look, I think I still have a lot of questions about where this, because this is supposed to be the legacy project, and what will end up being the legacy of this World Cup through this project. I think in the way it's described and with the scholarships and some of these renovations, I think it all sounds great.
Is there a but in there somewhere?
No, well, and listen, maybe things changed. When I heard about this legacy project, there was a lot of talk about inner city, right? And so when I look at the map, I think that's something that
let's look at the map, Victor. So we have that. Please, sir, continue.
That's where I kind of, wonder what happened here, right? And again, I would say in addition to, I'm not saying, any of these clubs or any of these fields are undeserving. I'm just saying in addition to, and I also, full transparency, I grew up in the southeast area of Houston. I know it because I damn near lived there all my life. So to not see any of the southeast here, to me is a little disappointing. And also, I would say maybe even more of the southwest if we're talking about underserved communities. Aldine at least got something there, and I know. Look, I think the two, up through the center. I believe
Moody Park. Maybe you're talking about
Moody Park, and there's another one that's basically they're Houston parks, but they're being turned over to Harris County for this, right? And the rest are Harris County parks. So maybe that also played a part in it. Not that there's no Harris County parks out towards the east or towards the southeast. So that's kind of just where my questions are. And then the other one is. Again, I think we, and again, this is just my personal opinion on this. In everything here with the World Cup, and especially now here with this legacy project, I think I feel like it's been a very closed circle when it comes to essentially Chris Canetti as the president and some of the Houston and Harris County Sports Authority. I don't know if they weaved in enough of the local community. A lot of these parks, and listen, Aren Garcia mentioned it while he was up there. Moody Park when he was a police officer, and he would go out in some of these local leagues. And I don't hear any mention of that, right? The people that already rent out these parks and have leagues, and listen, not every one of them is perfect, but they're also part of the we'll call them stakeholders of the game in this city.
Sure.
That I don't know if they were a part of this process. I didn't see them at this event. I'm glad we at least got a local school there to, again, as part of the celebration. And that's the only thing. I mean, I think this whole World Cup should be a celebration for everyone. Again, I still have to figure out more of all these. I still have questions about all these. I tried to get some answers from Chris Canetti after this event. Didn't really get any. And again, I go back to what happened with the Dynamo Dash Youth program with Chris Canetti in charge. And that's, all these things together just kind of leave a sour taste in my mouth.
Well, so let me separate in the Dynamo Dash Youth Club that existed, that has become now HTX, by the way, Victor. But that association with the Dynamo Dash professional side under previous ownership, and yes, at the time, Mr. Chris Canetti was the president. That I think is a topic that we can discuss. I think I will separate that for now, Victor, relative to what this I believe is. And I would not have participated in the vetting process, Victor, if I didn't believe in it. So again, friends, I'm being very, I hope I'm being very correct in my separation as a sports journalist, quote unquote, and as the head, the director of SG1 Soccer Club. Victor, the committee that approached me and us about participating and going through the vetting process, to me, is made up of a credible people who know the sport and know the politics of youth soccer in our city. Let me say, Victor, getting any of us together to do anything is nearly impossible because there are so many factors that are now in the youth sports, the youth soccer business, and I'm using that word intentionally, in Houston. This has become a big business for many clubs. This has become a way for coaches, administrators to earn a living. It's no longer thinking you're back in the 70s with volunteers and playing in associations that are number one, nonprofits, and second, at parks that barely know the sport. This has evolved. And we can have the conversation about whether it's for better or worse. But this process, Victor, was about getting many of us together that play in different leagues under different structures to come together for what I believe this is really helping kids who don't have the ability to play in the pay-to-play model. And we can have that conversation as well, Victor. We are committing as clubs, number one, to maintain the facilities, in partnering with the county and the city, making this happen, and then vetting players to come in who cannot afford it to be part of our clubs and giving them that opportunity at different levels of ability, by the way. You don't have to be an elite player. It's about maybe just learning how to play. There are many families, and Victor, you and I have talked about this. It's not only about, hey, can you get me the scholarship to not pay for the coaching, but what about the uniform? What about transportation? How are you going to get kids in the inner city to get even to practice when mom and dad aren't even at home to allow that? So these are the realities of what I see and what this effort should be about. We need to give the process time. And in this case, Victor, I will be very positive about what Mr. Chris Canetti has done, what this committee has done to even get to this point. If you look back at the history, Victor, let's think about it. When was the last time that youth soccer and politicians came together in something like this? I can't think of any. I'm pausing because I don't think anyone else out there.
You know better than me. Yeah,
but I don't know if I would know better. I don't know everything. Maybe someone can cite, hey, no, this happened better 3 years ago, here, and here. I don't hear that, Victor. So I get the sense of, hey, what is this really about? Who was selected? But I believe this was very a transparent process. and a process that, because of public funding at some point involved in all of this, that has to be transparent and clear. So clearly, and I've said this publicly, Victor, us clubs that are in, I'm sure we're happy. All the many clubs that are not, I'm sure are going to say, listen, what's up with this process? Who are these people? Why were they selected? That's a natural reaction in many ways. So I'm not defending Victor. What I don't know, what I do know, I believe was a very clear, transparent process that is allowing an opportunity for kids to play the sport and not be limited by the financial or by the lack of field space. Now, this will remain to be proven, Victor, not in 3 months, not in 6 months, but in 2 or 3 years from now, if the legacy continues, if the impact is still there for our community. I'll be quiet, sir.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, again, just off the bat, it's a harder ladder to climb for, and I'm just mentioning the Southeast, but like I said, there's a few there in the East too. At least, Baytown got one. I don't know if that's just because they're, precinct 3 and precinct 3 had to get some fields or something. But again, I still have questions about it. In the few answers that I tried to get, Chris Canetti clarified that none of the money is coming from FIFA. Basically, you need sponsors. And so if I'm reading between the lines, basically nobody thought it was worth sponsoring anything in the Southeast and the East, right there along I-10. But maybe I'm just interpreting that wrong. Maybe there's still an opportunity to add some more to this. And this is just, stage 1. So again, we'll see some of this. On the face of it, maybe it's just a private collaboration that is just getting tacked on to, so the local, World Cup committee can say they have a legacy project. Again, like you said, some of these things we'll see what they turn into. And listen, it's not to say any of these fields don't require, being renovated. Yeah. So like I said, I'm not taking any merit away from what's already there. I applaud it. I would have just liked to have seen this stretch a little further, especially given that, you got at least 5 years or more of planning behind this. And if this was the end product, then I am a little disappointed with the local committee.
Look, I can't change your mind based on what you know, what you see, and friends, similarly to our opinions, how does this play out? Is this one of the priorities for the World Cup in Houston and the committee that's putting all this together? I think this is one piece of it, Victor, and I think it's also mandated by FIFA. What do you leave behind? Again, an organization, FIFA, that at times has been less than stellar. Right. Less than stellar in the way they approach the financial piece of this. But Victor, I wouldn't be saying this, and I would not have committed SG1 Soccer Club to be a part of this if I didn't believe in it, and I do. And I think relative to everything else, Victor, this is a good thing for our community with people that know, people that are involved currently in the youth soccer business. I do believe, sir, and you did mention this, there may be secondary and even more layers to this and levels that may involve other clubs, may involve other parks, and hopefully it's something we can keep going. But I'll give you the last word, Victor, on this topic. And friends, I want to be clear again, transparent of the different hats that I wear when I look at this. If you have questions about it, I welcome all you to contact us to ask us and ask of the process how we got to this point. But Victor, I think in fairness, I'll let you close this topic, please, sir.
Yeah, well, I think I've kind of said
your piece,
everything I needed to say. Yeah. The only thing I would add is, this isn't some new concept either, right? I think this is something that many of us have asked in this community for a long time, more investment in the sport. I also wonder, to something of this degree, And I asked this of both Canetti and the Harris County Sports Authority CEO Ryan Walsh. Why does it take the World Cup to have, like you just said, it's hard to get all these clubs. Why does it take the World Cup to have to make this happen? Why do we need that excuse?
Yeah.
Why can't it happen organically? Certainly, why can't the Houston Dynamo and Dash lead these efforts? We see the Astros renovate fields all the time, and granted, they, probably have a bigger budget. But I would like to see maybe more of, again, the local clubs taking the batons, and that's another reason why I kind of maybe more disappointed at this, because I think, depending on Dynamo and Dash, I mean, that has been hard over the years. Hopefully things are moving in the right direction there. But I think in this, and I know they're also involved in this, but I think in this one, because FIFA mandates, like you said, a legacy project, it would have pushed for a little more. And again, hopefully there are more layers to this, and hopefully there's a way to grow this and grow the legacy, to steal the term there.
Well, we certainly hope so. So, Victor, let's close out the World Cup piece of this with not getting deep into the politics of the geopolitical situation. What I wanted to finish relative to the World Cup, Victor, was we saw the narco violence in Mexico last week. This week, we literally now have a war. The United States and Israel and in Iran. And how the Middle East now is in turmoil. Victor, we are months away from the World Cup. Does this make you uneasy about what that could mean for this worldwide event? Not only relative to teams participating, not only relative to cities hosting. I'm concerned, Victor, and I'm going to say it, about violence, about something crazy happening. You can only prepare for so much. And is this now a priority when it comes to safety and security, and even thinking about, wow, this may not happen if something crazy goes off? And that affects all of these efforts that have been going on for years, regardless of the intent. The geopolitical situation, Victor, is got fires burning in different parts of the world. We can talk about its merits, whether it's right or wrong, or left or right. But Victor, relative to the World Cup, I think this is a reality that every city now has to be thinking about.
Yeah, but I don't think it's anything that they probably weren't thinking before. I'm sure maybe the chances of some events have increased. But I think in every host city securities effort, they factor in terrorist attacks, and they have a plan. And listen, it's probably elaborate here in the United States. I choose not to live in fear. I don't know that we succumb to the worldwide, and I'm not going to pretend to be knowledgeable in any of these topics. But, I think it's supposed to be a celebration. It's supposed to be a unifying event, albeit FIFA and all those politics aside. It's a sport of the people. It continues to be. And throughout time, there has been, political events that have factored into other World Cups, or at least been a cloud over other World Cups, we can say.
Sure.
And, unfortunately, maybe this one will be no different. But I think soccer can also be a sport that heals and that provides hope. And I hope we see this World Cup, at least be able to be that for some that, maybe are going through a tough time these days.
Look, Victor, I agree with you. I think when we spoke about the narco violence in Mexico, it was, even the narcos take a month off for the World Cup. So maybe this will bring peace and give us at least that 1 month reprieve to all enjoy and be united by the sport versus not. But the back of my mind, Victor, where I'm losing a lot of hair, by the way, tells me that we have to be cautious. So friends, what do you think about those outside influences converging and potentially affecting the World Cup? We'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Victor, as we wrap up, a couple of quick hits on other topics. Again, we've had a full show today, friends, but the Dynamo the Dash organization, Victor, just in the last couple of days, talking about continuing the sale. An article in Sportico outlining how the sale was close, but the potential new buyer would not have vetted well through the NWSL. This is a Chinese-based entity group, but the club then has kind of cleaned that up and headed in a different direction, but still resetting the fact that the club is up for sale. That's our understanding, correct?
Well, that's what Sportico's reporting, that they're kind of trying to revamp here the sale of the club. And listen, Ted Siegel bought the Houston Dynamo, and the dash came attached. And I think we've seen now efforts, or at least we're seeing continuing efforts to sell him. He said he's open to new investors. Maybe that's what it is. These articles certainly don't help the case of is he, simply in it for the investment, or is he in it for the sport? But I think it's kind of, we're seeing maybe it's inevitable that Dash gets separated from the Dynamo. That might be a good thing as far as operations, to be independent if it happens. Listen, I'm reading some fans saying, hey, maybe we need to show up more for some of these games. And that's certainly part of it.
Sure.
It's not all on the fans, but that wouldn't hurt. That's why I always say, I think when people kind of walk away and say, well, I'm going to cancel my season tickets, and that's part of it. And listen, if that's how you feel, I understand when you're in that position. I also think you also have a right as a paying customer to be able to voice your opinion and still continue to go to the games. It doesn't have to be, oh, if you're at the games, you're only there to, basically be a good soldier. No, you have as much of a right. I would say you have even more of a right to say what you don't like about the team and what you would like changed, and fight for your team.
Of course.
And we've seen that over the course of history in several American clubs. I would like to see this dash revived. When I say all the criticism I think that I brought to the club comes from that, comes from trying to kind of put some life into the team, kind of shock some life into the team. I think we become too comfortable with just having a couple thousand there at the games, if it's even that. I think we've gotten too comfortable with, well, maybe we'll make the playoffs, and if not, it's a growing year. I think, when you see other markets like Bay FC and San Diego Wave, when you see Denver coming in this year and they're going to, have 45,000 people for their first game, when you see Boston and what they're building, and the fact that we're just kind of stagnant here, maybe this is the kind of kick that wakes up a market. We'll see where it ultimately ends up. But I think, if you want the dash to stay in town, I don't think they're moving out unless there's a buyer that just throws a whole bunch of money at Ted Siegel. I think part of the reason why they want to make the sale is to, kind of pass off the expenses to another ownership group, or at least have help managing some of those. But I don't think they want to get rid of it from the market, because that's another tenant for Shell Energy Stadium, and that's still money for them.
Victor, I will have to add a piece, I think, of what you said. I don't think it's one or the other, meaning being in it for the love of it and not caring, or only caring about the business side. These things have to live simultaneously, Victor. I don't think any reasonable person would say, sure, let me just dump money into a passion of mine until I lose enough that I can no longer do it. That's not reasonable. None of us would go into something, even if we're passionate about it, and say, there's an indefinite, there is my investment is never going to stop. There has to be, the economics of this have to be looked at, Victor, for the health of the team, for the health of the league. This is how leagues disappear. This is how the NASL, North American Soccer League, back in the day, disappeared, because people kept believing but not looking at the financial side. The worst case scenario here, Victor, is similar to Major League Rugby now, that lost the team in Houston. Mr. Mike Loya pumping money into that for years out of passion. At some point, he woke up and said, you know what? I can't keep doing this. I've got other commitments. So that has to be part of the calculation, Victor, number one. Now, you are correct in the possibility that maybe someone comes in with deeper pockets and has a passion and reignites what this team could be. What you said is correct also, though. We don't want, the ownership of the Dynamo, who are in control of the stadium, don't want the tenants to disappear. Nobody wants that. Now, if I'm an owner coming in, I may look at my options and say, hey, I need a different stadium. Instead of 22,000, 20,000, maybe I need a 10,000 seat stadium. And the economics of it might play into that, Victor. So, but we're talking more about the financial and money than about passion and marketing and promotion and grassroots efforts to get with the community.
Into. That's why they do have to prove it. They do have to prove that, it is about the on-field product. And again, you got to invest in that too. It can't just be, well, I'm going to ride this and see where it goes. Yeah, I think, sometimes you, I don't disagree. I think you got to make some money. I also think that that's why sometimes you got to go for it a little bit more than just kind of, play the slow game that hasn't really worked in Houston for many years.
We will see, but definitely the possibility exists of new ownership. When and how and who and where, we still don't know, but that is on the radar. By the way, as the NWSL and the Dash get ready to open the season here shortly. Victor, we've got to go. They're kicking us out. Our producer says, hey, listen, guys, I got a life. I got things to do. Before we go, though, Victor, let's talk a little bit about what's on our mind. Is the segment we like to close with, but what's on your mind, sir, today as we close out the latest edition of the podcast?
Yeah, I'll go back to, unfortunately, like you mentioned, the tragic events we just, this conflict with Iran seemed to have spurred a tragic event to our neighbors up in Austin. And unfortunately, there was some casualties, and the good thing is that, the first responders were able to get there. The police were able to get there as quickly as possible to stop this from escalating into an even bigger tragedy. We're just talking about potential events that could happen. And, some of them, the dangers might be here. On the home front, Austin FC getting an important victory there the day after Christian Ramirez, the former Dynamo, who just signed with Austin, scoring the goal and bringing a little bit of an uplifting moment for that community. But I hope we don't see as many of these tragedies continue. I don't know exactly what the solution would be, but I hope as a society we can become more human as opposed to go the other way and just go all out war.
Well said, Victor. And again, we are thinking about the victims in Austin. It's early, Victor, but there are potential connections to a terror attack. Regardless, it was terror, and families that are hurting from this. By the way, my daughter lives in Austin, Victor, and the moment I woke up and saw the news, I had some anxiety for about 30 minutes until I was able to speak to her, like many other families, I'm sure. So it's heartbreaking. And also, Victor, the troops right now, there's been an announcement with the war in Iran. And again, we can debate its merit or not, but American servicemen and women have been lost. And that's a tragedy, and we pray for all of them. And I hope that we can be more human in all of this. So a lot to talk about. Victor, as we get ready for closing out the podcast, I wanted to talk about what's on my mind today. And we've talked in this podcast about the recently announced free kicks program, what the World Cup legacy will be, at least on the youth side in Houston. And as I've mentioned, I wear a couple of hats, one as a so-called sports journalist, another as a leader of SG1 Soccer Club. And to me, this is an opportunity for us to come together as a youth soccer community. That's the way I approach it. That's the way the committee that selected the clubs and the political side, the commissioners, the mayor, the structure that is in place, arrived at selecting parks. I see this right now as a positive for all of us, a positive for the sport. And I really hope, I really want that this is an impetus so that we can come together as a youth soccer community. We have been fractured for way too long. We have been dismissive of each other. We have been overly competitive when it comes to me only. There's been no altruism when it comes to our sport, to the growth of our sport, and what our sport needs to continue to thrive. And if we don't do it, friends, there will be a consequence, which is not a positive one. There are many reasons why we've gotten to this point, and it's fair game to talk about all of those. The question now is, what do we do at this moment as leaders of clubs, as youth soccer players, as the youth soccer community, to improve youth soccer in Houston, be it leagues, be it fields, be it the way we approach this business. And I'm using that word intentionally because that's what it's become. We can lament it, we can be upset about it, but we can also fix it. We can also make it better. We can make it more accessible. We can make it a pathway to change a young man and a young woman's life. Forget your D1 scholarship. Forget debuting with the first team. That's the 1%. But there are 99% of the kids that play youth soccer that will have thriving lives and hopefully, because of our collective effort, learn from the sport. And those lessons hopefully will make them better as they become adults, as they become parents, and pass it on to the next generation. So I'm proud to be a part of it. And my hope is that this brings us all together as a soccer community. So, Victor, that's what's on my mind. I went a little long, of course, but they're kicking us out, Victor. They're saying we got to go. Adios, hasta luego, ciao. Victor, last word as we close out.
Yeah, well, no game for Dynamo this week, but we'll keep an eye on the rest of MLS. And always welcome your comments. Leave them here, and maybe we'll get some in the next episode.
Oh, I'm sure someone will comment, Victor, but please do it respectfully. On behalf of our production crew who are ready to go to sleep because we're recording late tonight, on behalf of Victor Araiza, I'm Alex Parra. Friends, thank you for joining us on this latest edition of the Soccer Tejas podcast.